Shy Waitress discovers hidden sign language talent, transforming Billionaire's deaf mom's life in a small Midwestern diner. Emma wiped down the counter, the scent of grease and coffee mingling in the air, as the lunch rush settled into a chaotic rhythm. As the bustling diner filled up with laughter and conversation, she felt like a ghost, moving silently among the patrons. Dreams of becoming an artist flickered in her mind like the neon diner sign outside, but reality weighed heavier. The responsibility of caring for her grandmother loomed large, her fainting health singing reminders of long nights spent laboring in a factory. She was a servant in her own life, endlessly pouring coffee and collecting plates, ever the shy waitress blending into the background. At a few tables down, a deaf patron waved frantically at her mother, his expression desperate. Emma approached, heart racing. Could she help? Using gestures she had learned watching Friends over the years, she found herself unintentionally forming words in sign language. It felt liberating, an unexpected spark igniting within her as she saw the boy's face brighten. The sensation was intoxicating, yet slippery. Could she really have a gift? The idea seemed ludicrous. Wasn't she meant to stay in the shadows, forever folding herself back into the anonymity that came with her life? Just then, James stepped through the door, his tailored suit sharply contrasting with the diner's mundanity. His presence transformed the air, stirring a mix of excitement and self-doubt in Emma. She tried to ignore him, her heart thudding as he caught her eye. James was an ambitious tech entrepreneur, one whose mother Margaret faced isolation in her silence. If only he knew how tangled Emma's world was, how every smile she wore was a mask for insecurities that gnawed at her, urging her to stay small, to remain unseen. Yet, as days turned into a routine filled with fleeting moments between them, an undeniable connection formed, igniting a flicker of hope. Emma wanted desperately to reach out, to help Margaret bridge the gap of silence. But could she? With every urge to embrace this talent came the weight of her humble beginnings, echoing the sacrifices of her grandmother's life. Pushing against the growing swell of possibility became overwhelming, fear clawing at her gut. Would she be betraying her roots in this pursuit? One rough evening, a wealthy customer's derogatory comments about the lower class slammed into Emma like a brick. Her breath caught, anger flaring through her like wildfire. In that cramped diner, she confronted age-old prejudices, not only for herself but for all those like Margaret lost in silence. The spiral of confrontation tightened around her throat. Each passing moment felt heavier, slicing through her confidence. Her resolve faltered against the prick of self-doubt. Was she standing up for others, or simply reacting to protect her fragile self-image? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Emma prepared herself for the conflict to come, the weight of entitlement crashing against her. Panic swirled as she demanded dignity for every person and every relationship that had shaped her. In that moment of rebellion, she felt her cocoon of hesitance fracture, revealing that the journey ahead would not be peaceful. Each decision she made now echoed into her future, colliding with the loyalty she felt toward her grandmother. Torn between the past's grip and an unfamiliar future grasp, Emma stood firm just as the last of the patrons drained their coffee, leaving her with countless unresolved threads that would dictate her path. Would courage lift her above the din of normalcy, or would she lean back into the shadows again, fearful of the chances she might take? Emma felt the silence of the diner envelop her, every sound muted except for the pulse of her racing heart. Anger simmered beneath her skin, an electric current sparking her desire to break free from the bonds of her shyness. The wealthy customer's dismissive tone still echoed in her ears, but now Instead of retreating into uncertainty, she was ignited by the urgency for change. Could she not only advocate for herself, but also for others, initiating a ripple of hope for those left unheard? She glanced at James, who was seated across the room, his attention focused solely on the woman beside him. The mere sight of him fascinated, entrenched in his world, made her hesitate. She feared stepping out of her narrative and into his realm, where confidence radiated effortlessly. But this moment demanded her assertiveness. Emma took a deep breath, steadying her thoughts. If she truly possessed a talent in sign language, why not use it? "I can help," she blurted out, already turning her back on her comfort zone. The words exited her lips before fear could tame them. All eyes turned to her, but Emma stood firm, fueled by a conviction she hadn't known she possessed. She cast a glance toward Margaret, who sat alone, the pain of exclusion etching lines of loneliness on her face. With an unexpected fluidity, Emma navigated the room, separating herself from the weight of her previous doubt. She reached Margaret, hesitating only for a moment before folding her hands into a familiar pattern, fingers conveying what her heart felt. "This means hope," Emma signed, her hands trembling with a mix of fear and exhilaration. Margaret's expression shifted, a glimmer of recognition sparking in her eyes. Emma felt a rush of pure energy flow through her as the older woman mirrored her movements, responding with signs that created a bridge they desperately needed. James rose from his seat, intrigued. He moved cautiously toward them, his eyes filled with curiosity rather than judgment, and Emma couldn't shake the feeling that every moment was becoming monumental, not just for Margaret, but for herself as well. She could feel the tight grip of self-doubt loosen its hold as she immersed herself deeper into this new destiny. That moment, the diner transformed. Where once there had been static and silence, laughter erupted, vibrant conversation displacing the shadows that clung to her self-image. Emma could feel her spirit lift, bolstered by this undeniable connection not just to Margaret or James, but to her own emerging identity. Nothing felt the same as she stood there, fingers dancing and emotions swelling inside her. She was forging something remarkable, a sense of purpose, the chance to express herself beyond coffee cups and greasy plates. But with this realization came the sharp sting of potential losses. Could she truly step beyond her boundaries? Would this lead her to a place of authenticity, or would it dismantle the fragile life she had built, entwined with her grandmother's needs? As applause broke out from the small gathering around them, Emma hesitated, a flicker of uncertainty threatening to unravel her newfound courage. The world around her seemed to hold its breath. She was teetering on the edge of not just connection, but also her destiny. The waiter next to her, his brows furrowed, interrupted her thoughts. "You're just a waitress, right? What do you know about all this?" The question struck her like a blow, and for a fleeting moment, darkness slipped back in, urging her to retreat. But as she looked at James at the hope in Margaret's eyes, Emma felt the flickering flames of her confidence reignite. She realized the truth resided not in the labels others had placed on her, but in her choice to embrace her talent fully. The decision was impending, laden with the weight of all she had ever known. Empowerment surged forward, demanding to be embraced. Would she choose to confront the doubts that thrived in others, or let them slip away as she stepped into the light of her truth? As she squared her shoulders, the whispers of the past battled with the calls of the future. The moment of truth drew near. What path would she choose, and how would it shape the lives around her? Emma stood still, heart pounding as the applause faded into the background. It replaced the din of uncertainty that had shadowed her for years. With every clap, she was reminded that she could break through walls she once thought insurmountable. The waiter's jab lingered on her mind, a reminder of society's tendency to box people in. In that moment, she felt the weight of expectations, both internal and external, inching down to a manageable burden rather than an unbearable load. "Just a waitress," she mouthed under her breath, the phrase turning over in her thoughts like a lingering melody. But she wasn't just a waitress. She was a bridge between worlds, capable of making profound connections. The realization filled her with the kind of energy that made her pulse race. Emma knew it was time to forge ahead, to grasp control over her narrative instead of letting others define it. She turned to Margaret, who beamed with fresh vibrancy, reinforcing Emma's conviction. Their mutual understanding transformed what had once been a barrier into an opportunity for nurturing connection. Emma felt charged with purpose, harnessing the courage that had been dormant for so long. I want to do this. The thoughts surged in her mind like a steady drumbeat, a mantra inviting her to explore the depths of her capability further. She looked up at James, who was watching her with an expression of genuine admiration. His gaze gave her a sense of freedom she hadn't allowed herself to feel before. She wasn't just part of the background in his life. She could be a pivotal role, a driving force for transformation. As the diner became more animated, Emma felt the urge to take on more responsibility. She scanned the room, searching for opportunities to extend her newfound skill. Suddenly, a wave of insecurity washed over her. Would she be able to sustain this? Could she provide the support Margaret required? Or was she simply a fleeting moment of hope in an otherwise uncertain world? The fear of failure traveled through her thoughts like a frenzied tornado. With a deep breath, she recalibrated her focus. Wasn't it worth the risk? What did growth look like if not through grappling with challenges? She riffled through her memories of sign language classes, those moments of clarity when she felt the magic of communication click into place, a realm where there were no misunderstandings. Yes, she would do this. She wasn't just advocating for Margaret. She was asserting her own voice. Margaret, she signed while gently grasping the older woman's hands, steadying her own breathing. I want to help others like you. I want to start something. It felt exhilarating to articulate this aspiration, the thought of channeling her skills into something bigger than herself. Hesitation still flickered in the corners of her mind, but Emma refused to allow it to dominate. The reality of her situation was knotting tighter around her as she considered the impact she could have on others, on Margaret, on her co-workers, even on the diners who had once looked past her. She could initiate conversations around accessibility, awareness, and perhaps start a small group where those who communicated through sign could connect in a meaningful way. The waiter's skepticism echoed, but only spurred her determination. Emma envisioned a world filled with expression where no one felt unseen. She would let her actions translate into a voice, hearable even through silence. As the evening wound down, the sun slipped from view, accentuating the change that Emma felt within. The horizon outside seemed to hold endless possibilities, and she welcomed them. The leap of commitment loomed, thrilling and terrifying. Could she dare to explore this uncharted territory where her talents could resonate? Yet, just as excitement surged, doubt whispered a familiar refrain. Could she really balance this new endeavor with the responsibilities at home? Only time would tell if she could successfully manage her duties alongside this potential new path. The decision between comfort and growth settled heavily on her. Emma leaned closer to Margaret, a sense of resolve crystallizing. Could her journey ignite not just her own future, but the potential futures of others like her? A new chapter awaited, and she felt unprepared yet inherently ready. The chatter around her began to fade, and she took a moment before sealing this pivotal decision with her next action. What awaited her in this pursuit of empowerment? The looming crossroads pressed on her mind as she stood at the threshold of her new reality. What would she ultimately sacrifice to step into that light? The diner emptied slowly, each clatter of dishes and hum of conversation fading into the echoes of her determination. The lights dimmed, leaving a warm glow on her face that caught the attention of passing patrons. Those who once dismissed her as merely the girl behind the counter were now drawn to the potential she radiated. Every moment of doubt clashed against her growing resolve. Emma felt a surge of obligation, a calling to create space for connection where it had been overlooked. Every interaction had a matter, and so did she. She gathered the remnants of the night and deliberately set about organizing the small dining area, her mind racing with possibilities for the next steps ahead. Each task brought clarity. The rhythm of wiping down the tables became a meditative process, each flick of the cloth reflecting her shifting mindset. She pictured Margaret surrounded by others like herself, sharing experiences, feelings, and dreams. Would her laughter echo through that imagined room, filling the gaps where silence once prevailed? The thought set her heart racing anew. With each passing second, the ideas crystallized in her mind. Workshops? Meetings where language transformed into expression that transcended barriers? Emma could facilitate dialogues that had been silenced for too long, and she would initiate this movement herself, leading those who craved inclusion. Yet specializing in a new territory invited calculations and consequences she had to weigh. The balancing act of home and new responsibilities pressed against her mind. Would she be able to manage both worlds, mothering her younger sister and nurturing this newfound ambition? The complexity of it gnawed at her resolve but also ignited her spirit. Growth demanded sacrifice. She understood this now. With a determined click of her pen against the clipboard she absconded from work, Emma started drafting a plan. She outlined objectives with fervor, sketching the essence of her vision. What would the first gathering look like? Where would she host it? Should it be at the diner, where connections formed naturally among the regulars? As thoughts flowed like a river unbarred, an unfamiliar feeling coursed within her. Leadership. The idea was intoxicating, yet anxiety shadowed her progress. What would others think of her? Would she be perceived as pretentious for suggesting such a shift? The nagging self-doubt clung stubbornly in her mind, wrestling for dominance against her burgeoning self-worth. Yet, each meaningful stroke on paper was a stroke against that doubt. Emma's heartbeat echoed with the promise of her ambitions. The ink might as well have been her convictions solidifying into reality. Suddenly, there was a knock at the door. James stood outside, eyes wide as he caught her mid-thought, clipboard still in hand. His expression shifted from surprise to curiosity, and Emma felt exposed. "Hey, I didn't want to interrupt, but you seem deep in thought. What's going on?" Her stomach twisted, words ready to tumble out, but self-consciousness crept into the corner of her heart. Instead of detailing her plans, she hesitated, her throat thickening. Would he accept this dream? Would it sound as ridiculous outside her mind? "Just ideas," she finally said, finishing with a weak smile that barely convinced even her. James wandered in, curiosity dancing in his eyes. "Ideas? About what?" He tilted his head slightly, encouraging her to share, a familial warmth enveloping him. Emma considered the weight of his question. "I want to start something meaningful to help people communicate better, to create a space for those who understand differently. Maybe start meeting up with others who use sign language?" The words hung in the air between them, heavy with possibility. Instead of dismissing her, James stepped forward, the respect evident in his expression. "That sounds incredible, Emma, but do you really think you can pull it off?" The challenge snuck into his tone, not as an insult, but a probe. Was she genuinely ready for what she proposed? "What do you think I should do?" She countered, fighting the impulse to retreat. "I think you should go for it," he replied firmly. "But if you're serious about making this happen, it's going to take plenty of work and dedication. You need a plan, a strategy." The words resonated within Emma, awakening the dormant zeal needed to actualize her ideas. His faith felt like a release, and from that moment, questions morphed into steps rather than stumbling blocks. Beneath their exchange lay an unexpected bond forming, one steeped in investment, both in her endeavor and in showing the world her very real capabilities. "Maybe you could help me strategize?" she proposed, almost sheepishly, but a flicker of excitement brightened her voice. James contemplated her request, a smile creeping on his lips. "Of course, but this is just the beginning. You'll have to fight for it, Emma. Are you ready to face obstacles that will undoubtedly appear?" A wave of determination crashed over her. This was no longer just a notion, but a resolute declaration. "I think I can," she responded, her voice laced with newfound strength. As they began brainstorming plans over spilled coffee cups and laughter, Emma realized that the journey ahead would demand every ounce of her courage and creativity. The path was fraught with uncertainties. Yet at this very moment, the fear of the unknown felt inconsequential next to the thrill of opportunity standing just on the horizon. What would she uncover as she continued to battle her own insecurities? Each plan was a brick in a growing wall, but would it withstand the pressures ahead? Emma thought about what truly lay beyond the horizon, transformative potential and fortitude, and she could barely contain the rising excitement of unknown opportunities trailing behind. But lurking in the shadows of her bustling ideas were doubts that had yet to be voiced. What would happen if the world rejected her efforts? Would her bold step plunge her back into obscurity? The thought lingered like a dark cloud ready to roll in. Emma braced herself as she contemplated the coming day. Should she dare to step forward despite the fear? The call to action echoed in her mind, yet the precipice felt steep. What would this choice demand from her next? And was she truly ready to embrace it? The following morning felt electric, charged with anticipation and the remnants of her late-night revelations. Emma awoke with the sun flickering through the thin curtains, illuminating the clutter in her small room, a mix of laundry, school papers, and remnants of her brainstorming session. Each item spoke to her life, both as a sister and a budding leader. She needed to make the day count, yet a palpable tension gnawed at her stomach. Scaling her responsibilities as a waitress while painting a new identity proved daunting. The morning shift at the diner beckoned her, necessitating the wearing of dual hats. Emma forced herself out of bed, grabbing her uniform from a pile that seemed to grow unmanageable by the day. It was more than just a uniform. It was emblematic of the dual existence she now faced, one rooted in the past, while the other teetered ever closer to the potential she aimed to grasp. As she maneuvered through the bustling diner, the familiarity of coffee pot spouts and the whir of the machinery grounded her. The clamor of regular patrons filled the room, and she smiled at the approval the customers had shown her now that she embraced her ambition. Yet, doubts crowded her mind with a stubborn persistence. Could she truly lead others when she was still grappling with her self-worth? "Hey, Em," called out Sophie, her coworker. "You look like you're plotting world domination instead of pouring coffee." The teasing brought a smile to Emma's face, yet the jest hit a nerve. Was she plotting something so encompassing? What would her shift hold? James noticed her distant air and settled onto a stool at the counter, a casual demeanor concealing his interest. "You all right?" he asked. The concern framed by the diner's banter rekindled a sense of assurance in Emma. "I'm okay. Just thinking about the plans," she admitted cautiously, the lingering worries about executing her ideas inching into her thoughts. "Thinking won't bring you anywhere," he countered lightly, but there was a seriousness beneath his words. "You need action. Let's lay down the first steps, Emma." His encouragement lit a flicker of resolve within her. Planning became entwined with hope and anxiety, the two constant companions shadowing her every thought. In preparation for what she envisioned, Emma wrote notes and gathered resources, scrutinizing formats that might work for others to express their thoughts and feelings without apology. The noon rush swept through the diner, and her rhythm evolved seamlessly among the frenzy. Serving customers became a performance, each interaction so crucial that it mirrored the intricate steps she needed to lead her workshop. Realization dawned. Meeting the public's needs in small doses prepared her for larger, groundbreaking endeavors. With each customer's smiling face, Emma gathered confidence that solidified her resolve. The blossoming connection they shared during daily interactions stirred excitement within her. This was a skill she carried, building rapport and maintaining dialogues. As the shift finally ebbed, an unexpected visit from an old acquaintance, Clara, brightened the end of her day. Clara had been a sign language interpreter for years. They had lost touch over time, and the encounter prompted a flood of questions about the path ahead. "I heard you might be interested in starting something new," Clara said, leaning in with interest. Suddenly, the world felt expansive and suffocating all at once. Would Clara be an ally or a hindrance? "I am," Emma stammered, the words teetering on her lips like a tightrope walker. "Do you have a structure for it yet?" The directness of Clara's question unearthed uncertainties Emma had buried deep. "What if she wasn't ready? I want to gather people to communicate differently through sign language and open space for everyone." "Led with your passion," Clara advised, her eyes sparkling with interest. "But no, Emma, that won't be all rosy. You'll encounter skepticism, perhaps even outright refusal. Are you ready for that?" In that moment, the realization struck Emma like a bolt. She had to weigh this passion against the harsh reality awaiting her. "I think so," she replied, steeling herself against the impending turbulence. The rest of the day flew by in a blur of thoughts and relentless anticipation, leaving Emma with more questions than answers. A rally within her stirred, combating the skepticism she feared to face. Her conversation with Clara had stirred something urgent. It was time to act, not just think. As the day turned to night and the diner cleared out, Emma found solace in the calm. The anticipation and tension within her melded into a driving force that pushed her forward. Yet, just as she considered her next steps, the niggling doubt returned. What if she failed? What if her efforts spiraled into disappointment? Determined to explore this, Emma opened her notebook to draft an idea meant to silence that doubt. Words began to flow, starting from "where I am," but as she penned the phrase, another voice interrupted her thoughts. "Emma, do you have a minute?" James's approach sent a chill through her. Laced with curiosity, what did he want to discuss? The rhythmic chaos of her ambitions seemed to halt as she turned to face him, ready to brace herself for whatever challenge awaited. What could he reveal that might alter her fragile resolve? Would he be the push she needed or a reminder of her doubts? In that moment, she teetered on the edge of vulnerability and bravery, a confrontation brewing just beneath the surface. Would this catalyst transform her journey, or would it deepen her uncertainties? A choice loomed: to continue this path of growth or retreat into the comfort of her existing life. The urgency of the moment ignited excitement within her, but also anxiety. What truth would James unveil that evening, and would Emma be prepared to embrace it? James's entrance was like a flicker of lightning in her dimly lit thoughts, causing her heart to race. He sat on a stool, crossing his arms with an innate confidence that contrasted with the chaos coiling around Emma. She could sense something significant brewing beneath his casual demeanor. "Emma, I've been thinking," he began, his seriousness pulling at her attention like gravity. "I've seen how you serve customers, how you connect with them. It's clear you have a knack for understanding people." His voice was steady, but there was an intensity in his gaze that unnerved her. Did he know about her aspirations? "Thanks, I guess," she replied, unsure of where this was headed. Doubts clawed at her gut, questioning if he might expose her insecurities or even the grand ideas simmering in her mind. "You mentioned wanting to create a space for communication, to help people express themselves differently," he said, leaning closer. "But let us not kid ourselves. You need to have a plan, a vision beyond just the spark of an idea." His words ignited both irritation and determination within her. Who did he think he was? Of course, she knew planning was crucial. But this was about more than just a workshop. It was about breaking free from the fear that had long shrouded her ambitions. "I'm working on it, James," she replied, pushing back against the boundaries he implied. "But I'm ready to face the challenges, and I want to do it in my own way." James raised an eyebrow, clearly not satisfied. "It's great that you're passionate, but you need to be pragmatic," he pressed, skepticism lacing his tone. "Have you actually thought about the logistics? The materials, the outreach, getting people to attend?" A wave of frustration washed over her. Here was this guy, sitting comfortably, shedding light on practicalities that, deep down, made her weary. The thought of tracking every logistical detail felt suffocating. But confronting him felt like a necessary conflict she hadn't anticipated. Does everything have to be so calculated? Emma's voice was sharper than intended, but the honesty felt liberating. What if I just want to create something raw and real? Not every life-changing moment can come neatly wrapped in a plan. True, but dreams don't often survive in the wild. He shot back, his eyes intense with challenge. You might need to let some of that rawness evolve into something structured. You can't just rely on feelings. As tension brewed between them, she fought the urge to retreat under the weight of doubt. Was he right? Did she need to shelve the impulsiveness that pulsed through her veins? This confrontation with James was forcing her to evaluate her commitment, and whether a mixture of structure with her passion was what she really required. Maybe you're right, Emma said, her voice softer, almost reluctant. But how do I balance both? How do I embrace my passion while navigating practical boundaries? James relaxed, sensing her shift. It's all about finding that sweet spot. I'm willing to help you if you want. Not in a way that stifles your creativity, but to align it with something tangible. His offer hung in the air, tentative yet compelling. Could she actually combine her aspirations with the discipline he proposed? Could this be a partnership rather than a mere obstacle? And what if she was overanalyzing it all the way forward was a path of discovery? Wasn't it? Let me think about it, Emma finally said, the tumult of emotions swirling like leaves caught in a windstorm. The conversation had left her rattled, exposed, grappling with the fragility of her dreams before James's steadfastness. She recognized that stepping forward meant embracing uncertainty, and it would mean accepting assistance. No matter how condescending it felt at times, as they parted ways, she was left wondering how far she could stretch the boundaries of her abilities. Was she really prepared to blend her raw enthusiasm with the structure necessary for success? The fear of complacency weighed heavily on her, propelling her determination yet amplifying her discomfort. Stepping into the night, Emma felt the adrenaline coursing through her, a concoction of fear and hope. Each pathway weaving through her mind battled for supremacy as she considered alliances, logistical considerations, and her vision. She pulled her notebook from her bag again, flipping to the pages filled with her fresh ideas. Doodled sketches of workshops danced in her mind, entwined with thoughts of how she could bring sign language to life. But if she were serious about this, she needed to bridge that gap between her passions and the practicality James emphasized. The clock was ticking down, and a choice loomed. She had to decide whether she would let this new partnership propel her forward or be another weight strapping her to doubt. Suddenly, her phone buzzed on the table. A message flashed across the screen. Claire wanted to meet. Could this be the connection to unearth the clarity she needed, or would it simply complicate the turbulent waters she was already navigating? With her heart pounding, a surge of anticipation mixed with dread emerged. Emma had to confront what lay ahead and whether she was ready to embrace it all. Would these new interactions push her towards the path of leadership she craved, or would they lead her into deeper uncertainty? Emma's heart raced as she read Claire's message one more time. The casual phrasing masked a weighty implication. Was this an opportunity or another risk to her fragile confidence? Clara had always been supportive, but meeting up could reveal how much Emma was truly willing to invest in her aspirations. With renewed intensity, Emma settled at a corner table in a cafe they frequented. The rich aroma of coffee mingled with anxiety in the air, familiar yet strangely suffocating. As she waited, she reflected on her conversation with James. She had to accept that ambition without structure often spiraled into chaos. A lesson that her impulsiveness sometimes let her forget. But that didn't mean she had to suppress her creativity. The cafe's patrons buzzed around her, each lost in their own whirlpool of interactions. Emma tapped her pen against her notebook, focusing on the sketches she had started the night before. Ideas of workshops and community connections sprawled before her, flourishing amidst the tension of her ambitions. But could she visualize them without James's pragmatic approach? Her mind flickered back to his piercing gaze, demanding more than she had wanted to give. Then Clara arrived, her warm smile cutting through Emma's turbulent thoughts. They exchanged quick pleasantries, and then Clara leaned forward, her expression shifting to one of curiosity. "So, how's your project coming along?" I've been brainstorming, Emma began, her voice quivering slightly. But I'm starting to realize there's a lot I have to figure out. James thinks I need a solid plan. The words slipped out, an involuntary admission that disarmed her. Clara nodded thoughtfully, sensing Emma's mix of excitement and dread. And what do you think? Is that what you want? Emma hesitated. I want to create something impactful, something raw. But I can't ignore that there are steps I need to take. I just don't know how to make that blend work. Sounds like you're at a crossroads, Clara said, eyes narrowing with understanding. It's important to express your ideas freely, but you might be in a position to learn from others, too. James seems to have a practical approach that could really ground you. The remarks set off an internal dialogue. Clara was right, but embracing James's practical side could mean losing part of herself. She had always fought against conformity, the pressure to fall in line weakening her resolve. But if she was serious about making an impact, perhaps some of that structure was necessary. What if I don't want to compromise? Emma's voice trembled with uncertainty. What if I just want to leap straight into my vision without being restrained? Clara's brows furrowed, her tone softening. You don't have to choose between passion and structure. Think of them as allies, not rivals. Finding balance doesn't mean losing your essence. It means leveraging it. As they delved deeper into the details, Emma felt a sense of clarity breaking through the fog. Discussions about logistics transformed from suffocating chores into steps toward empowerment. She could infuse her vision with structure without sacrificing her authentic voice. Could it be possible that each logistical detail would serve to solidify her ideas rather than stifle them? An idea ignited within her. What if I offered an introductory workshop on the basics of sign language? Something simple to start engagement and build a community around my concept? Clara's face lit up. That's brilliant. You'd create an entry point while also establishing yourself. Excitement spiraled within Emma as she plotted out the details in her mind. But amid the thrill, a pang of self-doubt nagged at her. Would she actually be able to pull it off? Could the people she aimed to inspire connect with her, and would they believe in her vision as much as she did? Determined to act, she pulled out her notebook, jotting down everything swirling in her thoughts. A workshop structure began to take shape, but the specter of logistical challenges and her fear of failure loomed large, taunting her as she wrote, their meeting wound. Down, Clara leaned back, her warm smile reinforcing Emma's burgeoning sense of purpose. I believe you can make this happen. Just remember, every venture starts with a single step. But that lingering doubt consumed her again as she stepped out of the cafe. She had to confront the barriers within herself, first her fear of imperfection, of diving into the unknown. Could she truly embrace the jump, existing in that fragile space between risk and reward? With the weight of potential success heavy on her shoulders, she glanced at her phone. A new message flashed. James wanted to catch up again. The prospect of a rekindled conversation sent a stir of anxiety through her. Would he believe in her plans, or would he scrutinize them as before? Emma took a deep breath, realizing she stood at the brink of transformation. The real question loomed just ahead. Would she choose to embrace this newfound clarity and step forward, or let it slip through her fingers as uncertainty clung to her heart? Emma's fingers trembled as she typed a response to James, her heart racing at the thought of meeting him again. The confidence she had just begun to harness now felt precarious, as though it could vanish with one unsupportive comment. Yet, she knew avoiding him wasn't an option. The conversation loomed like an appointment set in stone, a chance to prove herself. She made her way to the coffee shop where they agreed to meet. Emma's mind echoed with Clara's words. The tension between ambition and the need for structure seemed more pronounced than ever in her thoughts. Could she articulate her ideas clearly enough to persuade James? The logistics of the workshop were still sketchy, and the fear of judgment sank deep within her. What if he dismissed her proposal outright? Yet, with each step down the bustling sidewalk, a flicker of determination sparked within her. She had given her ideas a structure. They could stand on their own. Meeting James wasn't merely a confrontation of her insecurities, it was a pivotal moment to showcase her growth, a chance to validate her vision. She rehearsed her pitch in her mind, reminding herself that she could embrace both passion and pragmatism. The cafe door chimed softly as she entered, looking around until she spotted him at a small table in the corner, a single cup of coffee steaming in front of him. His expression was unreadable, but a part of her hoped he would reflect at least a hint of anticipation. "Hey," she greeted, her voice steadier than she felt. James looked up, his features softening into a smile that reached his eyes. "Hey, Emma, I was just thinking about you. I'm glad you came." They exchanged casual small talk for a few moments, lingering in the familiar rhythms of their camaraderie. But that comfort was peppered with an undercurrent of tension, a shared awareness of the weight this meeting carried. "Let us hear it," he said abruptly, his gaze sharpening. "You mentioned wanting to discuss your project." Emma took a deep breath, pushing through the anxiety that clawed at her stomach. "Well, I've been brainstorming an introductory workshop on sign language. It's something I'm passionate about, and I believe it could really connect people and promote understanding." His brow lifted, curiosity peaked. "That essay shift. What's your plan for it?" She plunged into her vision, the energy of her proposal seemingly igniting the space between them. She spoke of the workshop structure, how she envisioned participation growing organically as people engaged with both the content and each other. She talked about accessibility, the excitement of promoting communication, and the empowerment each participant would feel in learning something new. As she spoke, she noted how James leaned in, his posture shifting from casual to engaged. But then, he interjected, his voice cutting through her enthusiasm. "It sounds great, but how are you going to find your audience? You need to have actionable steps, a clear pathway for people to join. Without that, how can you expect to spark any interest?" The words hit her like a cold wave, reigniting her doubts. I thought sharing something raw and engaging would be enough. "But passion needs a framework to capture interest," he insisted, his expression earnest but firm. "You're both a teacher and a creator, and you have to balance those roles." A moment of silence hovered as Emma processed his words. A choice lay before her: either retract her ideas or stand firm in the face of valid critique. This was not merely a discussion about a workshop. It was an opportunity to assert her own worth and competence. "I see what you're saying," she replied slowly, feeling the tide of her conviction swell. "But I also believe in the power of genuine connection. If I can just get people in a room, I can show them the impact it can have. I want them to feel the possibilities, not just see a concrete plan." James regarded her thoughtfully, something akin to respect flickering in his gaze. "That's crucial, but you must also acknowledge that not everyone feels the same intensity toward a nebulous idea. They need guidance, a path help them step onto that journey." His criticism stung, yet pushed her. Maybe she was still grappling with the boundaries of what it meant to combine her passion with structure. Could she figure out how to navigate this without compromising who she was? "I think I can blend both," Emma asserted, resolve strengthening her voice. "The structure can support the connection rather than squashing it. I don't have all the answers yet, but I'm ready to work at it." James nodded, and a feeling of camaraderie settled in. Maybe he wasn't just a critic. Perhaps he could be her ally. But the conversation wasn't over completely, and uncertainty still loomed. Could she adapt and evolve not just for herself, but also inspire others similarly navigating the balance of ambition? As she savored this newfound determination, the phone in her pocket vibrated, a notification demanding her attention. Unable to resist, she unlocked it to find a message. Another workshop was already being planned by someone she admired, a serious competitor. Emma's heart raced once again, the urgency of the moment pressing down. Could she establish her footing before it was too late? The time had come to face her self-doubt head-on and carve out her place in a world that was both thrilling and intimidating. Would she launch her vision before it slipped away, just as quickly? Emma's heart thudded as she reread the notification, a mix of awe and dread swirling through her. The mention of a workshop from someone she highly respected felt like a wake-up call, resonating with her insecurities. A knot of panic tightened her gut. She couldn't let this opportunity slip away, not when she had just begun to lay the groundwork for her own vision. Taking a deep, steadying breath, she redirected her focus to James. His expression was a blend of curiosity and patience. "Everything okay?" he asked, his tone softening. "Yeah, I just got another workshop announcement." She hesitated, the weight of comparison creeping in. "It's from someone I look up to in the field." "It's daunting. Don't measure yourself against others too quickly," James advised, his voice firm yet encouraging. "You have your own story to tell. Use that as momentum." He was right, yet fear spiraled through her thoughts. She had spent so much energy crafting a unique vision, but standing next to someone already established made her achievements seem insignificant. How could she carve her path when so many were racing ahead? "All right," she said, her resolve hardening. "I'm going to take a step back and really think about how I want to approach this. Maybe I need to reevaluate my strategy, focus on what makes my workshop different." James offered a nod of approval. "That's the spirit. Identify what sets you apart and lean into that strength. What do you believe will resonate with others?" With that simple question, Emma felt a spark within her. She thought about her own journey, the struggle to communicate effectively while growing up, how sign language had opened up a new world for her. She felt her fingers itch to write out her thoughts, wanting to capture the essence of that experience, the passion that dictated this workshop idea in the first place. "You're right," she mused, a smile breaking through the tension on her face. "This isn't just about the mechanics of a workshop. I want my participants to feel how enlightening learning this language can be." James leaned in a little closer, interest clearly piqued. "Exactly. You have a powerful narrative. Turn the focus back to your personal experiences. Use what you know and how it has shaped you." With her newfound focus, ideas began to flow. She envisioned segments in the workshop where participants could not only learn sign language, but also share their own motivations for being there. It wasn't just about teaching. It was about creating a space where everyone could feel seen and heard. "I can integrate storytelling into the sessions," she exclaimed, her voice reflecting the excitement rising within her. "We can share why we're all here, what communication means to us. That connection will fuel everything else." James's expression shifted, an approving smile spreading across his face. "Now that's how you build interest. Make it personal. People are drawn to authenticity." A surge of confidence swept through Emma. This idea was taking shape, not just as a workshop, but as a collective journey tailored by the participants themselves. But her mind quickly diverged back to the competitor's workshop. The nagging fear didn't vanish. It lingered as a reminder that the stakes were high. She needed to move quickly, to carve out her niche before someone else filled the void she longed to conquer. "I need to figure out how to launch this soon," she said, agitation creeping back in her voice. "But launching without a solid plan will just leave me exposed to criticism." "Then let us make a plan," James suggested, his demeanor shifting to something more collaborative. "Map out each class. Identify your key selling points. Set goals for participation. Outline your desired outcomes for participants. When you have clarity, you can market it." His enthusiasm was infectious, pushing her past her worries. Perhaps she didn't have to navigate this alone. She had allies in unexpected places. A vision swam in her mind, a workshop that was not just a series of lessons, but a transformative experience where she could guide others toward unlocking their own voices. "Will you help me shape this?" she asked, her voice steady. "I could draft an outline this week, but I love your feedback. I want to refine this until it shines." "Of course," he replied, a genuine smile reflecting his support. "You don't stand alone, Emma. Let us create something remarkable." As she began mapping additional ideas in her mind, a flicker of intrigue crossed her thoughts. She pondered the possibility of collaborating with individuals who shared similar experiences. This could even lead to an innovative format she had yet to fully imagine. But just as excitement surged, doubt resurfaced, bittersweet and persistent. Would this new initiative lead her closer to fulfillment, or would it merely create new hurdles to jump? An inner voice stirred, demanding she rise to the challenge rather than shy away. Emma felt the familiar pulse of anxiety mixed with anticipation. The clock was ticking. She had to solidify her brand and voice. Glancing at her phone once more, she realized that the message was also a potential motivator, an urgent invitation to redefine herself. She just had to keep pressing forward. As they finalized their plans for her workshop, Emma's thoughts tangled between hope and trepidation. Could support from James give her the boost she needed, or would the looming competition overshadow her efforts entirely? Only the next steps would reveal how far she was willing to push her ambitions. The moment had arrived to grab hold of her destiny, but uncertainty whispered within her. Was she fully prepared for the journey ahead? Emma took a deep breath, the familiar buzz of the diner around her serving as both a comfort and challenge. Today was not just any day. It was the day she would officially launch her first workshop on sign language. The whirlwind of emotions from the past few weeks coalesced into a single moment of clarity. No longer just a waitress, Emma had transformed into a burgeoning leader, ready to carve out a space for voices that often went unheard. Standing at the entrance of the diner, which felt like both her sanctuary and her battleground, she surveyed the small room filled with the laughter of patrons and the sizzling of grills. The hum of busy conversations enveloped her, yet she felt distinct from the chaos, her mind racing at the impending reality of her endeavors. She had spent the last few days fervently drafting plans, pinpointing each component of her workshop to ensure it reflected her vision, a blend of structure infused with heartfelt storytelling. The morning rush came and went, serving as a test of her resolve. She poured coffee, shared friendly banter, but now there was a current of purpose in her actions. Each interaction solidified her commitment. She was no longer just moving through the motions. She was engaged, aware of the powerful role she could play in the lives of others. A familiar figure, James, entered the diner, his presence commanding yet grounding her at the same time. He approached her at the counter, a smile illuminating his face. "Ready for today?" he asked, his voice imbued with encouragement, seeming to understand the stakes of this moment. Emma nodded, feeling an unfamiliar yet solid confidence swell within her. "I think so. I've structured it around personal stories. It's not just about learning signs. It's about connections, building community." Every word felt like a stitch binding her journey together. James's approval surged through her. That's the key. People want to feel connected, especially in something as intimate as communication. "You got this." But as the diner began to buzz with more familiar faces, Emma felt a flicker of anxiety creep back in. What if they didn't connect? Would her workshop be yet another disappointment, a shadow of her aspirations? A voice in her head urged caution, but she willfully redirected her energy to excitement and possibility. These were not just strangers. Some were regulars who had shared laughter, meals, and even silent moments with her, the very essence of what she wanted to awaken within them. With every passing moment, the hours drew closer to her workshop, and the prelude of anxiety morphed into palpable excitement. When the diner's clock struck 6, she took a brief moment to gather her thoughts at a corner booth, reflecting on her personal growth. No longer the shy waitress who merely blended into the background. She had harnessed the courage to embrace who she was: a connector, an advocate, a storyteller. As members of the community arrived, Emma felt a surge of warmth. Some were familiar faces, others were new, drawn in by the curiosity sparked by her impending venture. Transforming from apprehension to eager anticipation, she stepped forward, ready to share her vision with them. With a few intentional gestures, she signed, "Welcome, everyone. Let us start a journey of connection." The words spilled effortlessly from her fingertips, a reflection of her growth. Her heart raced as her workshop unfolded, revealing layers of richness she observed in her participants' engagement. They conversed, exchanged ideas, and began crafting their own narratives. Emma felt the walls of fear dissolve further into the background. She was successfully facilitating connections, every smile, every laugh feeding into her motivation. As participants shared their own stories and motivations for being there, she witnessed a profound transformation not just within herself, but in them as well. Laughter echoed from corners as stories unfolded, breaking barriers they had each experienced in silence. Each connection, every spark, solidified Emma's role as a leader and apex of empowerment rather than merely a figure confined to the edges in a moment of lucid realization, the self-doubt that once swallowed her began to peel away. She was no longer hiding behind coffee cups. She had boldly stepped into the forefront of a cause that had once felt unattainable. The workshop, a tapestry woven with heartfelt narratives, blossomed beyond her expectations, shifting from simple ambition into flourishing reality. By the end of the evening, Emma felt enveloped not only by the camaraderie of newfound connections, but also by an exhilarating sense of accomplishment. She had not only launched a workshop, she had sown the seeds for a community that would continue to grow, reaching beyond her humble diner walls. The applause she received at the conclusion of the session was more than applause. It was acknowledgement of transformation, validation of her journey. There was a visible shift within Emma. She had come full circle from a young woman who questioned her worth to a cornerstone of possibility in her community. Each plan set into motion was solidified by her demonstrated commitment, no longer a facade, but a mosaic of authenticity reflecting the battle she had fought. As the participants exchanged contact information, Emma realized they were not just participants. They were allies, each eager to continue the conversation, to help amplify the voices of those who were often silenced. Emma smiled brightly, a wave of warm satisfaction washing over her. She wasn't merely participating in her life anymore. She was actively molding it, channeling her aspirations into tangible outcomes. Finally, she turned to James, who was watching her with admiration painted across his face. "Thank you," she said sincerely, "for every bit of guidance and belief." He smiled once more, and she felt his approval resonate deeply in her heart. This moment, this transformation, would forever redefine Emma's path. With a solid foundation now built amidst her fears, she knew this was just the beginning of inspiring change and empowering others. Emma was truly stepping into her identity confident, competent, and determined. And as she packed away her workshop materials and bid her community farewell, excitement swirled within her for the next chapter. In the ensuing silence of the diner, she made a vow to herself and to them. She would sustain this momentum, ensure that every voice mattered, and nurture this newfound identity that had literally blossomed right under her fingertips. The next morning would not only welcome a new day, but also the promise of myriad opportunities born from courage. Emma felt victorious, proud, and utterly resolved. This was her transformation, her legacy to build. Now, she knew the sky was the limit, and she was ready to soar. Don't wait even one more second. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. You need to click that button now, so you can join the journey of personal overcoming. Leave a like right now to feed the algorithm, and let us know you support these heartfelt narratives. Comment your thoughts and theories about this incredible conclusion, and share this video instantly with at least 5 friends who need to hear this inspiring story. The time is now to show your commitment to empowering journeys like Emma's.